Recording in progress.
I think it's at 6:30. Good evening and welcome to this council meeting. Before we begin, I call on Councillor Lepouris to give the acknowledgement of country.
On behalf of all present and those watching on webcast, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of these lands in which we meet and to pay our respects to the ancestors and spirits past and present.
Thank you. We have two requests for to attend remotely, Councillor Gibson and Councillor Spenceley, both for the reason of travel. Do I have a motion? Councillor Berrigan.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that council grant permission for Councillors Gibson and Spenceley to attend remotely, both for the reason of travel.
Seconded by Councillor Lepouris. I put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We welcome Councillors Gibson and Spenceley to the meeting. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Lepouris.
Item 10.5, I have a pecuniary interest. I'll be getting outside the.
Thank you. This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you are giving consent to your image and voice being webcast. Councillors, staff and members of the gallery are advised that we now have an improved audio-visual system operating in council chambers. The cameras will provide a better quality picture for those watching the webcast or on Zoom, and the new microphone in the centre of the chamber is highly sensitive and can pick up and broadcast any conversation in the room, including the public gallery. Councillors should continue to use the desk microphones for the benefit of the gallery. I'd also remind all of those in attendance that you must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during meetings of the council. Any councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media must leave the chamber to do so. So that takes us to the agenda. Could I move to the minutes, confirmation of minutes? Is there a mover? Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Santa. Is there any discussion? I put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Berrigan.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion that we open the public forum for items 8.3 and 10.1, and that we move the following motions on Globo. Item 9.1, the Waverton Peninsula Working Group minutes from the 6th of June 2023. Item 10.3, variation to development standards for the third quarter of 2022-23 financial year. Item 10.6, the cleaning of open spaces facilities tender, noting that we accept the recommendation contained in the confidential.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Welsh. Any discussion?
Well, could I just hear those again, please?
Yes, Councillor Gibson.
Oh, yeah. I want to speak on 9.2.
That wasn't included, so that is by exception. And the others that are by exception are 10.1, 10.2, 10.4 and 10.5.
10.6.
No, they're the ones that will be debated.
Wait a minute, 10.5 I wish to speak on.
Yes, it's all of those have been excluded from the on Globo.
Oh, good, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. That then takes us to the agenda. The first item is Merrill Minute 1. I'll speak briefly to the minute. And what it's recommending is that Council advise Transport for New South Wales that it will pledge $9 million of Council's local infrastructure contributions to support the delivery of Miller Place concurrently with the completion of the Victoria Cross Metro Station and Overstation development. Councillors, many of you would understand that this council, like all others in New South Wales, collects development contributions from developers of sites across our local government area. Indeed, we have an adopted local infrastructure contributions plan, and that plan explains that the purpose of the collection of those funds from developers is for the at the time of a development consent is granted, is in order to provide provision towards the extension or augmentation of local infrastructure required as a consequence of development in the North Sydney local government area, or infrastructure that has been provided in anticipation of or to facilitate such development. Under our local infrastructure contributions plan, for many, many years, the council has, of course, included provision for public domain works and augmentation in the North Sydney CBD. And so, at the same time that for at least 40 years, but particularly over the last 10 years, this council has put forward a vision to give the centre of North Sydney a heart, and we're calling that the Miller Place Initiative now. And we have an opportunity, we have a window in time, and that window in time is the delivery of the metro. And in order for Miller Place to be delivered in time with that metro, it will require a commitment from both the council but also from the state government. And now it has been long-term policy that we seek that the state government contribute to the majority of the works. But this council has legally collected development contributions for the embellishment of the North Sydney CBD. And so what I'm saying is that we should publicly commit those funds, which would be committed to delivery of the embellishment of our CBD in any case, at this point, in order to say to the state government that this needs to happen and it needs to happen now. And I'm sure that if it doesn't happen on this timeline, we'll be waiting another 40 years for it to ever be fully delivered, particularly with a state government that is facing very difficult decisions to be made, a new state government in relation to priorities for road projects. We, of course, believe that a centre that it arrives, a heart that arrives in concert with the overstation.
May I have an amendment?
No,
May I have an amendment?
Councillor
Have an
Gibson,
amendment?
Councillor Gibson, I will come to you in a moment. I'm speaking to the item and then I will come to you. And so on that basis, I urge you to support the item.
I have an
Councillor
amendment.
Gibson, you have an amendment. Would you put it, please?
Good. Okay. That council confirm its commitment, or confirm the commitment from the previous council to deliver a pedestrian plaza in Miller Street. Point 2, that council and the office of the council, the mayor and the deputy mayor seek an urgent meeting with the Premier, Chris Minns, and Transport for New South Wales in order to lobby the New South Wales government to fully fund the Miller Street Plaza If you could just read that back to me, please, and I'll speak to my amendment.
The council confirmed the commitment from the previous council to deliver a pedestrian plaza in Miller Street. That's already confirmed. That council, the mayor and deputy mayor seek an urgent meeting with New South Wales Premier Chris Minns and Transport for New South Wales in order to lobby the New South Wales government to fully fund the Miller Street Plaza. You wish to speak to your amendments?
Yes,
Hold on,
yes,
before you do, is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Lepore has seconded. You may speak to your amendment.
Good, thank you, Mayor. Look, as we know, in the previous council, we actually started the discussion about a pedestrian plaza in Miller Street. It hadn't really been discussed for decades. This was an initiative of the previous council. I certainly still support a pedestrian plaza in Miller Street. But in the last council, we lobbied and lobbied for the state government to fully fund this plaza. Our North Sydney CBD has been disrupted by all the major infrastructure works happening on Miller Street. Of course, we support and we welcome the Metro line, but it has come at a disadvantage to our entire community, to our council, and to businesses in the CBD. This is no time to just say, we'll give you 9 million and let you deliver the infrastructure. For a start, I'm rather concerned at the brevity of this mayoral minute. I would suggest that this particular plaza isn't going to cost much more than 9 million. And so that means that we're throwing 9 million of ratepayers' money at it to almost fully fund it. I believe that it's the obligation of the council and the mayor to lobby for state government funding, and we need to use this $9 million for other smaller projects, which will enhance our CBD, add to our CBD as a tourist destination, add to our CBD in a way that will help the small and large businesses in the CBD, but we should not be paying this 9 million. And I'm very surprised that we're now being urged to make a decision quickly, Mayor. This council and this mayor and deputy mayor have now been in place for 18 months, and the metro's been busily being built that entire while. I can't believe that we're now without any information whatsoever. There's no information on how much it's going to cost. In fact, there's one page of information here asking me to vote away $9 million of ratepayers' money on a piece of infrastructure that North Sydney Council does, and the community of North Sydney deserve to be given for free.
I'll just interrupt you there, Councillor Gibson. You must correct yourself. It isn't ratepayers' money. This is development contributions. It's a very different thing.
Well, it's all money that will be spent on the community, Mayor. But those funds can go elsewhere. As I say, they should be going to support local and large businesses, to increase facilities, to make North Sydney a tourist destination. That money can be spent very easily elsewhere.
Could I just correct you again for clarification? I cannot allow you to provide misinformation. They can only be spent in accordance with the local infrastructure contributions plan. It can't be easily spent elsewhere. Thank you.
No, I'm not suggesting that, Mayor. As you well know, I'm suggesting it be spent in the CBD on other projects, and that we lobby the New South Wales government to fully fund this. I do refer back to an article where I believe it was in our recent North Sydney News, or it might have been in one of the major media outlets, where the mayor was saying that we don't, in North Sydney, we don't object to development, but we want the infrastructure to support that population growth and possible further development. But we want that to be supplied by the state government. If the state government is going to push further development on us and further population growth on us, They need to be paying to give us more public open space. And this is the place to start. We need to immediately commence lobbying for this. We could even commence a community campaign, just like we did about the saving the trees in North Sydney. North Sydney Council cannot sit back and just say to this new state government, you know, we've got heaps of money. We'll throw our 9 million at that before we even start to lobby for it to be funded. We're giving away all our bargaining chips, Mayor, before this process has even started. And
Thank you,
this
councillor
certainly
Gibson.
cannot
That's your
be-
5 minutes.
I'll just finish that sentence, Mayor. We can't be forced to believe that this is now an urgent decision that needs to be made tonight. We've known, but you've been mayor for 18 months, and we've known about the metro all the time that this council has been in place.
Thank you. That's your 5 minutes.
I'll just finish my sentence. I
Well, you've
certainly will not commit to spending that $9 million on the floor of council with no discussion with councillors, no briefing. There's been no chit chat.
Thank you. That is more than your 5 minutes. You're closer to 6. Thank you. Councillor Welsh, then councillor Mutton. Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't support the amendment. Council's share of the Miller Street development is coming from the developers who have paid the levies specifically for this purpose. Brett Whiteley Place was funded with $5 million from the same source. I absolutely agree with the mayor that timing is of the essence for the reasons stated in the mayoral minute. Thank you.
Councillor Mutton.
Mayor, ever since I joined council, the vision of the Miller Street Plaza in whatever form has been centre of our council staff and their planning and their aspirations for the CBD. I'm not in any way opposed to the Miller Street Plaza. In fact, I think it is a critical piece of infrastructure for North Sydney. But what worries me about the motion that has come forward is that, and it started in May of 2020, where council staff briefed us on negotiations with government concerning the potential for the government to fund the Miller Street Plaza, because turning it into a plaza was going to be critical for the management of pedestrians around the North Sydney or around Miller Street. So I'm aware that there have been discussions going on since certainly May 2020. There is nothing before council to tell us what has been happening in those discussions. There is nothing before council to tell us why we should pledge $9 million of money, which is available to be pledged. That's not the issue. But the issue is, as soon as we pledge that money, our negotiating position with the government is shredded, because their start position will be whatever it costs, council is paying the first 9 million. And I have a view that because of the enormous damage done to North Sydney, be it by the Warringah Freeway or the metro development, the government owes us something more than offering to top up our 9 million on this very important plaza. My second concern is that the papers that come before council to support this motion should have included the business case so that it could be thoughtfully and thoroughly considered. So the motion is being considered on the basis of papers that do not include the business case. And the motion is being considered on the basis of we should show our hand and put in 9 million first. I think that is a very poor position to put our council in when it comes to dealing with the state government of whatever political complexion it is. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I've given a lot of thought to this 9 million, and I think the arguments for and against, like arguing is a glass half full or is it half empty? The 9 million could be seen to be taken by the state government as that's $9 million we've saved and the council can cough up, or it can be seen as a statement of our good faith that we really want to get this thing up and running. I lean towards the latter. I believe that the 9 million will be seen by the state government as a demonstration of our support for this worthy project. And so I'm against the amendment, and I'm supporting the original motion for that reason. And in doing so, I think that we will increase the chances of getting the state government to support the project. I also want to ensure that this project is going ahead, not just for a Miller Place, which is a worthy thing in its own right, but also because it ensures that we have development as part of a comprehensive traffic management study for the entire North Sydney CBD, including, in my view, a needed construction of a comprehensive bus exchange in the area. So I support the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Berge.
Thank you, Matt. I don't support the amendment and I support the mayoral minute. Councillors, if we don't contribute anything, then the state government might just do nothing. And it's a real shame that at state government level, there aren't contributions put aside for the provision of amenity, for ameliorating amenity for schools and hospitals. Instead, state governments just build it and say, we'll build all of the nice stuff later. What we are saying to the state government is the metro is a game changer for North Sydney. Absolute game changer. Miller Place and the pedestrianisation of Miller Place has been on the agenda since I was elected, which was in 2012. So the idea that this is, new policy is fanciful. I must say, I'm really pleased to see the concern about the spending of money from councillors Gibson and Mutton, given the enormous debt that we've inherited from North Sydney Pool. So I think that's wonderful. And if we were worried about ratepayers' money, about a few years ago would have been the time for that. This is developer contributions, which the council collects for this purpose. And to suggest it can be spent anywhere else is simply untrue. This puts pressure on the state government to deliver, to come to the table. The whole thing costing $9 million. The pool's costing over 80. I think it's going to be a little bit more than $9 million. And at the end of the day, we're the council that wants to deliver it, and we need to get the state government to come with us. And I have every confidence that the necessary meetings and lobbying will go on and it will be delivered. But if we don't contribute, then the state government can turn around and they've got plenty of other places to spend their money. So, Mayor, I support your mayoral minute and I don't support the amendment.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very, very keen to see Miller Place happen. I think it's going to give a heart to our CBD, as many people have said, and it's an exciting prospect. I would have liked to have seen a briefing on this issue, Mayor, with such a large amount of money being committed. So I'll just give that feedback, number one. But I would like to, in place of that, if I can ask a question through you to Director Community Planning and Environment.
Yes.
My question is just around this type of arrangement where I guess councils are contributing to major public assets. In broad terms, do you see this type of contribution as being reasonable in the context of this type of project?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's eminently reasonable. The discussions that have been alluded to previously in this debate around Transport for New South Wales and council working together has been the case. Unfortunately, we haven't been allowed to share that publicly, but there has been every intention from Transport that there would be some level of contribution from council to this project. the money is there in the restricted reserve in the contributions budget. So it's a reasonable expectation from the state government, and it is a very reasonable position, in my opinion, for this council to take as a commitment to the project in the climate of state government very shortly about to make some very significant budget decisions.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up. Do you have any broad understanding of the sort of costs, I mean, of what we're looking at for this place?
So the design work is happening now. The $9 million comes from council's previous work on the public domain strategy for the North Sydney CBD. It conservatively valued this project at $8.75 million. That was in 2019 or 2020. Look, back of an envelope type discussions that we've had internally, this project will probably cost north of $20 million. That's a little bit of guesstimation, but that's kind of the order of magnitude we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to continue further?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. In the absence of any other speakers, I'm going to thank
Hello,
you,
Mayor.
Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm a little bit torn on this topic. I think, as Councillor Burke said, it's fantastic to actually get the facts and details, in a briefing or in a formal report ahead of this. It is a large sum of money. However, I can't see of any reason why we wouldn't want to kickstart this project, and this is a critical project for generations to come. The spending of $9 million of developer contributed funds that is specifically for this purpose really is a priority for for this council. So I don't support the amendment. I support the original motion, the mayoral minute, and I think that whatever the cost is, if we can kickstart it with a fixed cost of $9 million, these types of projects can always go over budget, over time, and over cost. So if we can do and make the investment of $9 million to kickstart a commitment from the state government and get this project underway, I think it's money well invested. But I would echo Councillor Burke's comments that a briefing in some form of greater detail would have been appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. On that basis, I'm going to exercise my right of reply. So first of all, I'll speak to the briefing. We had a briefing within the last 2 months that talked about the timeline for these works and about the confidential negotiations the staff had been undertaking with Transport for New South Wales. So that has occurred. As for the idea, and thank you to Councillor Gibson for quoting me back to myself, yes, I want infrastructure to support growth supplied by the state government for housing targets that they impose. But equally, I think we have a legal and moral obligation to spend developer contributions that have been collected for the purpose of embellishing our CBD in the CBD. They are restricted funds that cannot be spent anywhere else. As to Councillor Martin's idea that we'll show our hand, well, we already show our hand. It's a public document called our Local Infrastructure Contributions Plan.
Mayor, point of order. Mayor, point of order. Point of order.
Speak to your point of order.
I never suggested that the funds could be spent outside the CBD. They can be
I
spent
didn't say
inside
that,
the
so I'm
CBD.
ruling against you on that point of order. Thank you. As to this idea that it'll show our hand is shown. We publicly have had this project on exhibition. We have consulted with every department of the state government who could be involved with it. We have publicly available our developer infrastructure reserves. It is money that everybody knows about. I actually think it will strengthen our hand. I think it will strengthen our hand because it says we're prepared to put our money where our mouth is, and we are reliant to deliver this project on state government decisions about changes to bus routes and about changes to traffic flow that need to be made now while they're doing the work to complete the metro. This is a window of opportunity. This is not a surprise. This is just the next step in delivering on a plan. And that's what we've been elected to do, not to just make great plans, but to deliver them on the ground. And so that is what this mayoral minute is seeking your support to do. It allows our staff, when they're going into those discussions with their counterparts in Transport for New South Wales and elsewhere, to say, this is supported and we can help to deliver it. And so for that basis, I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour of the
No,
amendment.
wait a minute, Mayor, I get to speak to the amendment. I have
Um,
my right of reply to an amendment. An amendment is a motion. I have a right of reply.
No, you don't. So
Mayor, the
only,
amendment is motion.
Councillor Gibson, only if your amendment becomes the motion, and that has not, we've not yet voted on that. So I'm ruling
No,
against
but I
you.
have a right.
I'm
to- I
ruling
have a right-
against you. I'm ruling against you. I'm putting the amendment. All those in favour? All those against? The amendment fails. I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? That is carried. Those against, if you'd like to vote against.
No, I wanted to speak to the motion, but you keep muting me, so I
No,
can't speak.
No,
I wanted
it
to
doesn't.
speak to
It's
the motion,
returned.
please.
We're moving on. Thank you very much, councillor Gibson.
I haven't been able to speak on the motion, Mayor.
Councillor Gibson, I've ruled against you, and that's, the matter has been resolved. We are now moving on to Mayoral Minute 2, the Camaray Community Battery update. I'll just briefly, I won't really even briefly speak. I think the Mayoral Minute speaks for itself. But I think we need to write to Ausgrid to acknowledge that they actually listened. We made the submission to them, and our community made the submission, and they listened. And their commitment to real community consultation was refreshing. I'm also really pleased that they're proposing to have a working group with councils and that we ought to be a part of it. So Councillor Santa, you wish to speak to the
Thank you,
minute?
Mayor. I'd like to propose an amendment.
Yep.
Point 2, that council seek advice from the federal government and Ausgrid on whether the community battery can be linked to proposed neighbourhood power sharing schemes. And if so, how this can be achieved.
I'm prepared to take that on as a point 2. Yeah. I can restate it. It's that council seek advice from the federal government and Ausgrid as to whether the community battery
Can be linked.
can be linked to the proposed
Neighbourhood power.
sharing scheme.
And if so, how this can be achieved.
And if so, how it may be achieved. Someone can raise a point of order, sorry. But not you. Okay, so that's the second item, councillors, and I've taken that on. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you. My reason for proposing the amendment is that everything I've seen so far links the community battery into the grid and not to anything that could be seen to be a local system of power generation to help us overcome the deficiency which we currently face in North Sydney with our high and medium density and the lack of uptake of solar generation on roofs. And one way that we at a council level have agreed could be used to overcome this is through the development of neighbourhood power sharing schemes in medium high density areas. And therefore I thought that by putting that in, we could perhaps get the federal government and Ausgrid to give some thought to that linkage.
Thank you, councillor Welsh.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the amendment, and I disagree about the lack of number of solar panels being on roofs, and I've got a statistic. 1 in 3 houses in Australia now have solar panels, which is a terrific world-leading statistic. Small-scale solar accounted for 25% of renewable energy production in Australia. The energy produced by household solar panels frequently is higher than what is needed to be used by individual households. What isn't used is fed back to the grid. But I take on about your power sharing, that can be hopefully worked in within our community. I agree. Our electricity grid was built to carry electricity from large coal-powered electricity stations to our homes. It was built for one-way traffic. Therefore, the grid can only absorb a limited amount of the electricity being refed to the grid by our solar panels. The rest is wasted. By putting community batteries into our neighborhoods, locally produced energy can be stored and used, not wasted. The local community can share the stored electricity in the community battery before having electricity come from the grid. The result will be cheaper electricity bills for everyone, whether they have solar panels or not. I'm so pleased the ARENA funding from the federal government has resulted in Camaray receiving a community battery. I'm also pleased that the council successfully advocated to have the battery situated in a position that was more suitable for the community. I welcome Ausgrid's forming a working group to work with metropolitan councils to develop a decision-making model to identify suitable locations for future community batteries, which will be needed for our fight against climate change. Last Tuesday was the world's hottest day. It broke Monday's record. There is no time to waste. We need these batteries. I support the mayoral minute and I support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Berkey.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you, Councillor Welsh. I just wanted to really say thank you to the Mayor for raising this and for raising this with Ausgrid, and how refreshing it was to see Ausgrid coming back and engaging, not just with the council, but with the community. And I know that many people who wrote to Ausgrid and said, we are fully supportive. We so want this to happen. You've just chosen a lovely piece of public open space, which we're already leaving. And they listened. And I think that is the most refreshing part. And I completely agree with the proposal, having a working group with us. I mean, and if this outfit, Ausgrid, can do it, then I'd suggest that others might be able to do the same as well, because it comes out with a win-win for everything. Everything is not a zero-sum game. Everything is not, you know, somebody wins and someone loses. This is a win-win for everyone. Public open space is protected. We move forward with the community battery, and we move forward with a dialogue with Ausgrid to go further. And this is the power of lobbying. And I just have to say that I can't believe how many residents have called and not said, I just didn't get a form letter. It acknowledged what I had to say, and it said we're looking at different options. So I'd just like to say thank you to Ausgrid, and thank you to the residents too, because it's lovely to know that they support what we're trying to do. But sometimes the first option is not always the best option.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the minute. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That takes us to the third mayoral minute. We have a registered speaker, Loretta Moy, from President of the Kayak Share Club and Friends of Platypus member, if you would come forward.
Thank you, Mayor. My concern with this, I must say, first off, thank you for trying to get something done for the community at Platypus. With this mayoral minute, I was concerned for one thing was the Harbour Trust are still going ahead with hoping to win a grant, and that's for a pontoon which is 5 metres by 13. And the thing is, I don't support it. I think it's just another thing that is going to compromise the site down there. What it is just a low pontoon for kayaks or small craft to use, but once you get on it, you then have to climb a ladder to get to a timber wharf. So it's not exactly conducive to getting a lot of use. It's really the site with such a long 120 metre concrete wharf, about a 50 metre timber wharf. It needs a gangway. It's just simple that you need a gangway to really make some use. Who is going to pull in, paddle up, get onto a pontoon and climb a ladder and go and find your coffee? Why bother? It's just poor infrastructure, wasted money once again at that site. And I just going to compromise the site because where they're situating it is actually, I see, more ideal for having a 50-metre pontoon swimming pool. I think council should really recognise, I think, the Harbour Trust are playing games. They're not really in storing kayaks. They're on their huge site, and that was evident in the submissions that they made to the Milton Point storage consultation done recently, that they said no, due to site constraints, they couldn't see storing kayaks at the Platypus site, but they could store it. They will happily just support them all have been stored at Milson's Point. So they're not really playing fair. I think as a public site, it should be there for public recreation. And I think council really needs to consider, I think, Harbour Trust are after money. I think they'll be quite happy to have some studies done where I think council could support so that you can look at getting a decent swimming pool, a better located kayak launching facilities there. And I think it's good that if council could consider funding in collaboration with the trust, but really being independent, because I don't trust the trust. I've seen enough of what they've been doing over the years, and they're not really there for community recreation. The whole site needs to be transformed from being a dull commercial park into a recreational park, really transformed, and that needs good money for a feasibility study, so money is well spent. So I would like to think council can really consider having words with Harbour Trust for looking at some good feasibility studies, so you're in a good position to support any funding for all these fantastic community facilities that could happen there.
Thank
But
you.
I think you need
That's
to
your
do
3
feasibilities
minutes.
first.
Thank you. That's your 3 minutes. Are there any questions of the speaker? No. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you again.
I'm going to move the minute. Are there any speakers? Councillor Santa?
So, Mayor, I'd like to propose an amendment. Point 3, that council support the Harbour Trust grant application.
So right to the state government.
Yes, sorry, right
support.
to the state.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on board too. So that's point 3, that council write to the New South Wales government, urging them to provide funding for kayak facilities at Platypus.
Kayak facilities, kayak and boating.
Whatever the term, small watercraft, small watercraft
yeah.
facilities, that would be better. I'll take that on. Councillor Welsh, you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Loretta Moy. That was, it's very important. Obviously, you're an expert on the subject of kayaks, etc., and I certainly appreciate what you have to say. But I do want to say I'm grateful to the mayor, the general manager, and the council and senior staff for meeting with the chief executive and senior staff of the Sydney Harbour Trust. And having an open collaborative dialogue is positive for the public activation of this sort of magnificent site. In the near future, there'll be a major First Nations art commission that will provide the former Torpedo factory site with a unique identity and will welcome diverse communities. An interpretation walkway and entry plaza with heritage objects and historic images honoring the workers and previous uses such as women employed at the Torpedo factory during times of conflict. And also there's going to be a new public tour offering for members of the public, and they can book and under the guidance of Harbour Trust guides, walk the site and understand some of the many historical stories. The Trust invites council's proposals and collaboration on developing a pilot or temporary art event or exhibition in the Retort House. That's terrific. They are happy to explore the potential for a harbour swimming area. And the Trust imagines the sub-base Platypus as a platform for community engagement and connection, as well as a vibrant neighborhood for work. The Trust has issued a standing invitation to the mayor or delegate to attend the regular community advisory meetings, where hopefully the council is able to continue to advocate for our local community. And hopefully that's where we'll be able to get some of the things that you suggested, Loretta. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That takes us to item 9.2, the traffic committee minutes. Is there a mover? Councillor Welsh
I move the recommendation.
and a seconder, Councillor Beregi. And you wish to speak to?
I
your
do,
item?
yes.
Thank you.
And I wish to speak as well, Mayor.
Okay.
Press.
Okay, traffic along Spofford Street and Rangers Road is a mess. Unfortunately, Spofford borders Mosman Council. North Sydney Council are finding it almost impossible to get Mosman to agree on any resolution to help mitigate the traffic congestion along this route. The ridiculousness of the situation means that the intersection of Spofford and Holt, a known black spot with numerous recorded accidents, and I have received photos myself from distressed local accidents or local residents. North Sydney will build a raised curb threshold and curb build outs to improve visibility on the North Sydney side of Holt and Spofford. To quote the representative from Transport for New South Wales during the traffic committee meeting, what about the Mosman side? Ideally, we should be working with Mosman to improve the flow of sustainable transport along our shared border. North Sydney has given it a red hot go to get Mosman to agree to a solution, but alas, we have failed. I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson. Sorry, you need to unmute.
First of all, I'd like to say, well said, councillor Welsh. The Mosman have just been totally uncooperative when it comes to Spofford Street. And I had several meetings with the chair of the traffic committee who just said, well, you know, putting money into a studies for Spofford Street doesn't help our residents. There seems to be a total denial that people going towards North Sydney or towards the other side of the harbour actually drive through Mosman, go across Spofford Street and continue through North Sydney to their destination. So it is just terribly disappointing that Mosman, which is a fairly wealthy council, refuses to cooperate on Spofford Street. And but it's good that we're actually doing our part. I also just wanted to comment on the work on Bligh Street on the 5.1, the work on Bligh Street, which is great. We're going ahead with the shared zone there. And I know that this work has to be done by October. Have the small businesses there been formally notified when this work is going to take place and the effect it will have on their ability to use their outdoor dining bays, how long the work's going to take, etc., etc. Last time I had a chat to some of these small business owners down there, they hadn't been given any information, and really this is not far away. Is there someone
Councillor
there that
Gibson?
would-
I'll ask Mr. Van Hesden.
I think I can answer
Oh,
that.
well, sorry, the acting general manager will answer that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the consultation information is in the traffic report. In relation to the specific notification of consultation with businesses, we'll take that on notice.
Good, thank you, Acting General Manager.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the item. Oh, sorry, Councillor Beregi.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to endorse what Councillor Welsh was saying. Spofford Street has been a nightmare pretty much since I was elected. And we have dragged Mosman along. I would like just to correct something that Mosman Council seem to be implying, is that we're actually trying to engage their residents. It's actually the other way around. Their residents are coming to us because their council is not listening to their concerns. So when we are sent photos, as I have been, by Mosman residents of accidents at Spofford Street, I didn't go and knock on the door and ask for the photos. They've tried to contact their council to get their council to act. Their council haven't, so they've come to us. So maybe once Mosman Council sees what North Sydney are doing and that it's reasonable, they might follow to match it and do the same similar thing for their residents. But I just wanted to make it clear that we are not approaching Mosman Council's residents. They're coming to us because we're listening.
Thank you. If there are no other speakers, I'll put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That takes us to item 10.1. We have a registered speaker, Jessica Carpenter. If you would come forward, please, and give your name and who you represent.
Good evening, councillors. My name's Jessica Carpenter. I'd like to say it's nice to be back, but frankly, prefer not to be. I sit here tonight speaking on behalf of the Wickham Road Heritage Houses, the Harrison Street Heritage Houses, and indeed a whole lot of other concerned residents that have approached me on the topic of 53 and 55 Yeo Street and its redevelopment. Unfortunately, we only became aware of the completed heritage report a matter of days ago. So excuse us if we're a little underprepared, and I know a few residents have reached out to you today because it's been such late notice from our perspective. We really didn't understand. We weren't abreast of what was happening. There are many more that are concerned but didn't get a chance to respond, obviously, with such short notice. I came here in February and spoke to you all, and we asked that 53 and 55 Yeo Street be considered for heritage review and for inclusion in the Cremorne Conservation Area. And at that time, we were very buoyed by your response. There was overwhelming support from everybody here and a real recognition of the need to preserve our unique heritage character in our neighbourhood. Unfortunately now, of course, we have the heritage report that suggests that the houses are not justified for heritage listing in their own right, but there is some very strong evidence that they should be considered for inclusion in the conservation area. Our problem here, of course, is that the reports were not commissioned at the same time. We are now running fast out of time, and we're at a total loss to understand why they weren't done at the same time. The motion that was put forward and carried here was that an urgent report be put forward to look at the heritage status and an urgent report be put forward to look at the conservation, inclusion in the conservation zone. If we revoke this IHO, of course, we lose the protection that it offered in terms of demolition. We know how resourced this particular developer is, and unfortunately, we may be out of time now. And having known that this demolition is on the cards, we're very disappointed that the two reports weren't commissioned at the same time. However, the background research has been done. The same people can easily be asked to expedite a report now to try to move this along. So basically, we beg you to ask for an expedited report here and do whatever is humanly possible to get any planning proposal in place if the advice is forthcoming. We note that the recommendation that's put to you in the report with this heritage report is basically to do nothing to minimise further costs. That effectively means that you're endorsing demolition of these properties. These are 110-year-old beautiful Federation homes, and it's just aghast to us that this would happen. So our question to you is, what is the cost of doing nothing? We have a chance here and we should make the most of it, even if it is only a slim chance now that we're running out of time. We say to you, the matter is now in your hands, and we're just asking you to commit to what you committed to in February.
That's your 3 minutes if you'd like to finish.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, if you forgive me, we're not surprised that the developers have no interest in preserving this area, but we would be appalled to think the council is not going to continue to fight for the residents that take this so seriously. So please vote to complete an expedited report for the inclusion of the conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Councillor Beregi.
Oh, sorry, because I have a motion. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Councillor Beregi.
Thank you, Mel. I have a motion. I'd like to defer this matter to a councillor briefing. An urgent councillor briefing. And that's the motion.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mutton.
Thank you. Just before I speak to it, if I could have a question to the Director of
Community
Plan. Sorry, I need a new. Could you just please comment on what the speaker just commented on about the dual reports and the timing of the reports, please?
Thanks.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, the report was commissioned about 4 or 5 months ago. For a heritage conservation area to have effect prior to the 23rd or the 24th of August, which is when this the interim heritage order lapses, that work would needed to have occurred at least 6 months before the work was commenced. So, in other words, an LEP amendment or a planning proposal takes about 12 months if everything runs really smoothly from go to woe, the commencement of the work to the gazettal of the work, to gazettal of the amendment. And that's what would need to happen for protection to be afforded to these items. The heritage conservation area inclusion, if we found a basis to substantiate it, would need to be gazetted. That takes about 12 months, typically longer than 12 months. So the work was done in 2 stages, and the first stage was the initial assessment of whether or not the items were worthy of heritage listing. The reason that occurred is because there were 2 Land and Environment Court cases afoot. They needed to be defended, and resources needed to be deployed to that area. So the only sensible thing to do was to do that work, followed up by the heritage conservation area assessment. The heritage conservation area assessment on its own is not a basis to cease or to halt to extend the interim heritage order by 6 months. That can only happen with the actual heritage items or potential heritage items, and we've seen through this report that there is simply no basis there. According to the consultant, who I must say is very conservative, in inverted commas, in her views, she was responsible for the Holt Avenue listings, and she faced up to 6 opposing heritage experts in court in substantiating her Holt Avenue views. So she's no slouch, and you know, we've chosen a consultant that knows her work, knows North Sydney really, really well, and has documented her views. I hope that answers your question.
Mayor, I have an amendment. Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, I have an amendment,
Yes.
which is for the recommendation as printed on the paper.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that amendment?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Lapouris.
Now, I just wanted to quickly say, I'm always in favour of briefings, but I think we just had that briefing or had all the information we needed to realise that if there are further delays here, we are going to have to allocate extra funds to fight this. I think we need to keep in mind that we've been unsuccessful in over 80% of cases in the Land and Environment Court. So we do have to be careful about how we spend ratepayers' money when it comes to legal matters. And our staff are so conservative. We've just heard from our new director that there's been very careful thought given to this recommendation, and our staff wouldn't have done this lightly. I think they've taken all the care they could possibly take to try to save these 2 homes in Yo Street, but the recommendation is what it is, and in this case I'm going to agree with the expert advice here from our director, and I'm happy to I'm not happy, I'm sad to have to support the recommendation, but I think it's a responsible thing to do.
Thank you, Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to support Councillor Berrigan's motion. I've read a good part of the book length report, 172 pages of it, and it saddens me that in it, these 2 grand old buildings are deemed not of significant heritage value and therefore worth preserving against the seemingly inevitable development bulldozers under the current high density living at all costs mentality in Sydney. Is it not possible that we can delay their demolition pending a further study into the feasibility of linking the 2 properties with the Cremorne Conservation Area?
Thank you, councillor Santa. Councillor Barrett, councillor, any other speakers? Councillor Beregi?
Thank you,
Give
Mayor.
you right of reply.
I'd like to just speak against the amendment and for deferral. I have read the report and I need to understand a bit more about the report. The conclusion is that the dwellings show similarities to contributory building. Further research may determine if the dwellings contribute to the significance are and of any worth. Now that doesn't kind of, and I have read through the whole report, and there are measures to reach criteria, and I'm not against criteria. I'm a mathematician, you hit them, you know, the numbers are the numbers. But we have this one chance to understand it. And if we are going to think about, do we take it to the second stage? We need to know the financial implications of that. And none of that is spelled out in this report. We need to know the timeframes. We need to know the risks. Whilst I'm talking, I think Councillor Gibson said we lose 80% of heritage claims in the land of all appeals in the Land and Environment Court. Acting General Manager, are you able to substantiate that claim? Or can you take that on notice? Thank you very much.
Point of order, it wasn't, we lose 80%. I wasn't saying specifically heritage matters.
No,
It was
we corrected that. You said it was all, and we're seeking clarification on that. Thank you. Councillor Beregi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. These are part of the fabric of North Sydney and of Neutral Bay. And I just want to be confident that whatever decision we make and it's fully informed. It's not going to take a long time, I wouldn't have thought, to get an urgent report, an urgent briefing, and find out exactly where the land lies and what our chances are. And then we can determine whether we vote for revoking the IHO or whether we decide to pursue further actions. It is, if we revoke it now, then the bulldozers do come in. And I think we just need to be clear about that before we go making any decisions. It is a lengthy report, and I'm really sorry that the residents and community members who actually submitted so much of their time and effort into objections and lobbying weren't told that the report had been out. And I think if the acting general manager could take it on board, I think that's a real another real reason that people should be able to make submissions to us as well. And so that when we make the decision, we're aware of the community. And it means that we can also go back to the community and say, we really have heard everything. We've taken everything under consideration and we've made the decision whether we're happy with it or not. So I would ask that you support the motion for deferral to an urgent councillor briefing so that we can then come back and make a fully informed decision.
Thank you. So I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? The amendment, those against? The amendment is lost. That we now put the original motion, Councillor Berege's motion, that it be deferred to an urgent councillor briefing. I put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried. That takes us now to the next item on the agenda, 10.2, the IPART review of the rate paid methodology. Is there a mover?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Beregi, seconded by Councillor Santa. Councillor Beregi, do you wish to speak?
I'll retain my right to reply. Thank you, Mayor.
Do you wish to speak, Councillor Santa?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to applaud the drafter of the report. I think it was very comprehensive and well argued. I think it's a pity that the review will only take place in 5 years. It should be more frequent, and it should include a fundamental assessment of the IPART system itself. Is it fit for purpose? What should the purpose of this system be? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Santa. Councillor Beregi?
I'm making this motion.
Okay, put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. That now takes us to item 10.4, community housing project update. Is there a mover? Councillor Welsh. Move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Councillor Welsh, do you wish to speak?
We are in a housing crisis. We need to prioritise affordable social housing. I agree with the recommendation to go with option 1 to prevent any further delays in the development of these desperately needed 11 units. I also note that there was a discussion to sell this property and put the money into the Pirween Street development. I would not have supported that initiative as I would like to see both properties developed for social affordable housing. In our current political climate, I believe we will be able to source funding from the state and federal governments for the Pirween Street development. I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this because the object of the exercise is to increase the current woeful proportion of affordable housing in North Sydney, not to maximise the proportion of council ownership of property in our local government area. So I support the motion as well.
Thank you. Councillor Berrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the motion as well. And I'd just like to publicly acknowledge the report of Rebecca Orkim, our former director, who was passionate about community and affordable housing. And the fact that we're dealing with this now on the floor of council, now that she's left to fly to other pastures, doesn't diminish her absolute passion for what she's put forward. So I was just wondering if we could take on the council right to our former director, Rebecca Orkim, thanking her for her report and advising her of the outcome of the resolution of the council, if you were happy to take that on.
Mover and second to take that on. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. That takes us to item 10.5, small coffee carts. Councillor Berrigan.
I'm happy to move the recommendation then.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Welsh. Oh, sorry, we'll just wait for, my apologies, Councillor Lapoulis. This is the one. Thank you. So we have a mover for the item, Councillor Berrigan, for the recommendation.
And I
seconded
have
Councillor
an
Welsh.
amendment. And I have an amendment.
Councillor Gibson, if you put your amendment.
That council receives and acknowledges the community petition in relation to this item. Two, that council provides a further report listing all options for compact coffee carts to be allowed in leased outdoor dining bays.
Thank you. I'll just see if there's a seconder for that amendment. There's Councillor Mutton has seconded. Councillor Gibson, it's been seconded. You can speak to your amendment.
Good. Look, I note this is quite hard doing this away from North Sydney and away from Kirribilli, where this community petition started. But councillors, we're here not to just push through rigid policies and never to change them in response to community concerns. Our community and the little community in Kirribilli do not have a problem with the coffee cart that is within the leased area of a particular restaurant in Kirribilli. And the community petition that was quickly organised demonstrates that. We're not here to I say just be rigid in our policies and never change them. I don't know why we don't have any speakers on this one tonight. Maybe they didn't hear about it in time. But our small businesses have done it tough. As we all know, in our little villages, our small businesses help make up the atmosphere of our village. And that's the atmosphere that our residents love and treasure. That ability to be able to go out up to their local village, sit outside on the street with a coffee and talk to other local residents, passers-by, small business owners, whatever. We know that this particular establishment in Kirribilli, where there has been a coffee cart in an outdoor leased area for about 5 years, has a difficult internal layout to the restaurant. There's actually no space in there to have a coffee machine. And people actually really like sitting there on the weekends and ordering their coffee from the barista who is working at the coffee cart. I'm over in Rome at the moment, and it's wonderful seeing how relaxed they are over here towards outdoor dining. You walk by and there's no rigidity in what you can use your outdoor rented dining space for. There's a relaxation which creates an amazing atmosphere and of course enhances tourism to this city. We keep talking about trying to get more tourists into North Sydney from outer area. And certainly one place where we should be attracting tourists to is Kirribilli. And we should be attracting them not to come by car or bus or train, but to walk over the bridge. All those visitors that are over in the rocks, I often see them walking over to Kirribilli. Now, we want to provide more incentive for those people to actually walk over to Kirribilli, spend some time there, spend some money in our village, which helps to support our small businesses. If we don't support these businesses, they disappear, councillors. And in Kirribilli already, we've had 3 or 4 small businesses disappear recently, and the police signs have been up for several years, and no one's taking up those options again. So we need to listen. I looked at the list of names of people who signed that petition, and most of them are locals. Most of them are saying that they actually quite like having that little coffee cart there, that if that's moved, it's going to affect their small business that operates there, and we might possibly have another small business go down the gurgler. Let's just be proactive here and look at how we could actually update our policy to accommodate something like a small coffee, food, beverage service, which actually adds to the vitality of our streets. Everyone likes walking past and seeing the coffee being made there. When you walk past and see the barista there, you think, oh, I'll stop for a quick coffee. It's attractive, it's busy, it adds atmosphere to our street and to our village. And here we are saying that a coffee cart that has been there for 5 years and has community support now will have to be removed if we pass this recommendation as put forward by Councillor Berrigie tonight. Let's just get some more options on how we could use our imagination and come up with a policy that doesn't interfere with the use of the street, but would enable. Okay, I'll just finish my sentence, Mayor. We could come up with some policy initiatives that would please our local residents who signed this petition and would allow us to explore clever ways to be able to make outdoor dining more of a feature in Kirribilli and allow coffee to be made on the streets as it is in most European cities around the world.
Thank you. Councillor Mutton.
Mayor, I have a great deal of sympathy for small business, and I have a great deal of sympathy for small business operating in very constrained spaces. But with respect, that is not a justification to establish a permanent infrastructure on council land. So I'm opposed to the amendment. It may well be that the policy needs to be revisited in a broader sense, but not in this very narrow sense. So as much as I sympathise for small business. And as much as I understand the problem for this particular operator, he has chosen to operate on council space, and he didn't have the right to do that. There comes a time when a line needs to be drawn. This is it. Later, the policy might be worthy of being revisited. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Santa.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm torn as well. I'm a great believer in promoting small business and certainly tourism to the area. I'm also a great believer in al fresco dining at a personal level. But this on actual footpaths, I think, may result in pedestrians being impeded in their motion along the footpaths. And so we would incur their opposition to it. I think we perhaps can review this as Councillor Mutton has proposed. I agree with that at a later date to see if there's some compromise that we can come to whereby we can make both parties happy. With some regret, I'm not in favour of the amendment. I believe it should go in as proposed.
Thank you, councillor Santa. I'm just going to speak briefly in support of councillor Mutton. What's before us is not about one cart in Kirribilli. We're being asked to, if the amendment was successful, to change the policy for the whole of the local government area. And I think that the report is a good one. It sets out the sorts of consequences.
Sorry, Mayor, point of order. Point of order, Mayor. That's not what my amendment said. It says, if you read point 2, it says
No,
listing all.
I understand, councillor Gibson. I'm ruling against your point of order. What I'm putting to you is that the debate to date has been about a single cart in Kirribilli, and this report and what's before us is not about a single location.
No,
it's about the whole.
I never
local
said
government.
that.
That's all right.
never
Thank you,
said-
councillor Gibson. I ruled against your point of order, and I'm just about to conclude my support for councillor Mutton. I think it's sensible, careful policy in relation to the public domain, which is what we're talking about it, and the commercialisation of public domain. These are the businesses are permitted to have outdoor dining. They're permitted to lease parts of the footpaths. I think councillor Santa is right. There would be all sorts of unintended consequences in that anyone could have a small cart and place it anywhere, which may actually result in greater competition to those in permanent locations who have the access to outdoor dining. So thank you. I'm going to oppose the amendment and support the original motion. Are there any other speakers? If that's the case, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? That's councillor Gibson. All those against? That is lost. I'll put the original motion, which is the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That brings us to the close of the meeting, councillors. Thank you all for your participation, and we will meet again in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.